1956, there were 12,000 drive-ins in America. 95% of those are dead. And yet there are native Indians, the Crankaway Indians of Texas, who believe there is a spirit that lives on in these decayed temples where Americans once worshiped. They call it Wiskavanaha, or the spirit of blood, breasts, and beasts, or the 3 Bs. What you are about to witness is a summoning of that spirit, a return to a part of the American heritage that has all but vanished. It's a heritage of drive-in movies, controversial movies, groundbreaking movies, the weird, the offbeat, the strange, and most of all, the sleazy. You are about to experience one of the sleaziest movies in the history of the world.
I don't know about you, but when I see a sight like this along the American highway, I get kind of steamed. You know, there's not even any place where you can watch the classic movies anymore. Movies like Please Don't Eat My Mother and Gas Pump Girls and Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. You know, if they were to make Blood-Sucking Freaks today, who knows if anybody would even get a chance to see it. Not to mention the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. At least Saw is still the king after all these years, but I'm determined to do more than that. This series will bring you more than 1,000 of the sleaziest drive-in movies ever released. And this project, at our current rate of release, will be finished in the year 2116. But see, that's how dedicated we are to the preservation of the American drive-in. Kind of makes you sick, don't it? Well, this is where I live. Welcome. And you have come at the best possible time because you aren't going to believe this movie we're showing this time. There are a few moments in the story of the sleaziest movies in the history of the world that stand out from the rest, and the one you're about to see stands out a good 73 inches. I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the incredible 73-inch bazoomas of Chesty Morgan. This is a scale model here. This isn't the full deal. Chesty was sometimes known as Busty Russell or sometimes known as Zsa Zsa. She changed her name a lot. But most often she was known as, was she born with those things or did she get stuck in a piece of farm machinery? Actually, Chesty was an Israeli actress who came over to America in the late 60s to do a novelty act in strip clubs, and she would play at places like the Pilgrim Burlesque House in downtown Boston. And I saw her there one time, and they billed her as 76 inches. They had this big sign out front that said 76, 28, 38. I remember it. Now look at this poster of the movie we're going to watch tonight, and it says 73, 32, 36. She lost 3 inches off her chest and 4 inches gained on her waist. I don't understand how that could happen. But it was only a matter of time, I guess. It was destiny that she would meet up with Doris Wishman, the woman who made the sleaziest sex and violence movies of the 1960s. Movies like Bad Girls Go to Hell, and Too Much Too Often, and The Immoral Three, and The Sex Perils of Paulette. Doris Wishman, who made her first movie in 1961 with $20,000 of her own money and discovered that the public would buy as much raw sex and violence as you could feed it. And I admire that woman for that. This was long before women's lib, too. And what I have here in my hands is the ultimate expression of that career, the 73-inch parachute bra worn by Chesty Morgan in the Las Vegas sequence of Deadly Weapons. Now, obviously, it's not the actual 73-incher. This is what's called a miniature in the business. It's used for special effects sequences when the scales are so large that you can't shoot them in real size. The premise of this movie is very simple. When the mob kills her boyfriend, Chesty fights back with the only 2 weapons she has, her deadly weapons. Her plan is to track Harry Reams to the ends of the earth and to make him pay. And there's only one murder fiendish enough for Harry Reams. He has to be beaten to death with the breast of the woman he wronged. You know, there are people in this movie, I'm not going to lie to you, who are literally boobed to death. And it's really no laughing matter. I know you're laughing out there, but I'll never forget this. You know Morgana, the kissing bandit? She came to Dallas one time to perform at this topless bar, and she was arrested by the police for allegedly beating a man over the head with her boobs. And a lot of people made jokes about that. They thought that was funny. But actually, I was there that night, and they got it all wrong. She didn't beat that guy over the head. She had his head down between her garbanzos, and she was slapping both his ears with them, which is actually more dangerous. You can have permanent hearing loss that way. And I can verify that if the cops hadn't intervened when they did and made those arrests, somebody could have been seriously hurt or even killed. And I told Morgana later, if you're going to point those things, honey, you'd better be prepared to use them. So it's not funny. The events in this movie could happen. You got a couple of nuclear tether balls strapped to your chest. You can just imagine what kind of disasters you can have. We don't want another 3 Mile Island. Now, another thing I want to get out of the way, a lot of people that saw this movie in the early 70s when Chesty was at the height of her popularity, they thought this was going to kill her career, because they'd go to the movie and say, well, shoot, she can't act worth a flip. But see, that was intentional. It was decided from the beginning that she would let her two enormous talents do all the talking. And so she spent long hours in drama school perfecting the special technique that she unveils in this movie for the first time, the 2-minute vacant stare, the disgusting droopy pantyhose, yuck, the platform shoes so high that the camera crew had to follow her around in case she keeled over backward and gave herself a head trauma. Falling forward was no problem, of course. Anyway, the movie didn't hurt her career at all. It made her even more popular. She got the big money at burlesque clubs for a long time, and the movie made a whole lot of jack, so much that Doris Wishman decided to do another movie, even though she and Chesty never did really get along on the set. But anyhow, I'll tell you about that later. Now, if you hadn't seen these Hooters, then we need to get to it. And those drive-in totals for this movie are 24 naked breasts, 7 dead bodies, and some of the tackiest clothes in cinema history. They've got some clothes on some of the people in this movie that if you took them to Goodwill, they'd say, nope, you need them more than we do. Great movie, though. Enormous movie. What a movie. You know, I think the highlight of that movie has got to be Harry Reams getting knockered to death on the sofa. This movie was made just a few months before Harry went on to eternal fame in Deep Throat. Remember that? Doris Wishman just hired him at a casting call in New York. She remembered him as a very nice, polite young man. And then you have that twist ending there at the end. Doris Wishman always put in a twist ending, even if it didn't make sense. And I hope you noticed that nude underwater swimming footage during the Florida part of the movie. If you've been following along in our history of Doris Wishman's movies, you'll recognize that footage from Diary of a Nudist. I think it's Diary of a Nudist. It might be Gentlemen Prefer Nature Girls. But anyway, she used that footage every chance she got in every movie that she could. And after watching this movie, you're probably thinking to yourself, please stop showing those women's boobies. They're disgusting. Oh, no, is she going to take off her blouse again? Because, you know, let's face it, those boobs are all mushy and they have creases in them. And, well, see, we have this model of them here. And, you know, they're about 3 different colors. And when she grabs them, they jiggle like Jell-O and everything. We even, on this model, we even put the little hickey things around the... But see, we're talking early 70s, and when porno wasn't really around much, and so if you'll notice, a lot of times they just told Chesty, hey, Chesty, go in there and take a bath. That'll be good. And that was supposed to be sexy in these movies, because people were just starved for anything. And I mean, if you heard somebody around town saying, hey, they got this movie down the street with a woman with 73-inch boobs killing people with them, then wouldn't you fork over $3 for that? I know I would. So, anyway, remarkable as it might seem, those 73-inchers became even more famous after that. And so Doris Wishman, the #1 lady in exploitation films, she agreed to hire Chesty for another film, this film called Double Agent 73. And I was talking to Doris one time, and I asked her, I said, Doris, why did you do that? Because she just told me all these reasons why she hated working with Chesty Morgan, how unprofessional she was, blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, well, Doris, why'd you make another movie with her? And she said, well, because I had this great idea of what would happen if you surgically implanted a camera in Chesty Morgan's left breast. And so that's what they did. But that's another story. The amazing garbanzos of Chesty Morgan are holstered for tonight. The falcon is molted, the fat man bowls alone. But the drive-in will never die.